Hey y'all, it's Nancy the Handy Scandy. Welcome back for another crafty venture and episode 20 of Saturday Morning Makes. Hey y'all, welcome to Saturday Morning Makes. I have been playing with, I don't know, maybe a variation on an old technique. Maybe it's a new technique. I've heard it called faux wood burning. Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, it's what I've been doing. And I have used a variety of different stamps during my play. So I'm just going to kind of set them all out here so we can kind of see them. Maybe they'll make sense, maybe they won't. Make sure you can see everything that I've got going on there. I think you can. So I saw this on, I think it was Lou Collins. She is a British designer. I can't remember the company. But essentially, you take a stamp, you take some watercolor card and a water-soluble ink. You ink up your stamp, you spray both it or you mist the stamp and the watercolor card with the water, and then you stamp it, and then you get this really loosey-goosey watercolor effect. You let it dry and you don't move anything, so you don't take your paper out of your misty, you don't take your stamp out of your misty. You let the cardstock dry, you clean off the stamp, then you ink up the stamp again in a non-water soluble ink. So I guess that would be a pigment ink, right? Because dyes are water soluble, pigments are not. And then you stamp it again. And the dye ink, when it's loosey-goosey, gives you like that, the spray, if you will, or the burn of a wood burned project. And then the black pigment ink, I didn't say black in the beginning, but black seems to work best. That gives you the detail. So this isn't a very good example of it. This was used or created with this stamp from Whimsy. It was actually just in my stash and I thought I'd give it a try, but this is the vintage wallpaper, and I actually had stamped it with the dye ink with water, and that's how I got the blue, and then I did the black over it, and it didn't work quite the way I wanted, and I have no idea. This is obviously a scrap, but I have no idea what cardstock that is. So I can tell you that my Fabriano seems to work much better than the Arteza. So this is the first one that I did, and I don't even have that stamp out. And oh yes, I do. It's this one. It's this one from Tailored Expressions. Now I used a green. It was these two colored inks for some magic. It was the Jumbo Java and the Tea Leaves. And you can see I did that, and then I sprayed it with water, and that gives you the really loosey-goosey watercolor effect. And again, this is the Fabriano paper. And then once that was dry, then I stamped it in my VersaFine Clair Nocturne, and that gives you that black detail. So it's really cool, and I just kept playing with it. So that was this one. Let me set it aside. While my stamp was still wet, I went ahead and got another image. I just think it's really pretty. This is just a bunch of stamp off on the back. Now, this is the next one that I tried. This is again on Fabriano. It is this stamp. It is Winterberry background from Pink Fresh. And I used my greens. This time I used the hint of pesto and the brown. And then I got, I sprayed it and I got the loosey-goosey watercolor, and then I stamped it into black, and that's where I got that detail. I think it's really pretty. It's very unique. It's not, I don't think it's new. I think it's just something that I've not really spent much time looking at. And actually, I went back and I stamped the darker green, the hint of pesto. I stamped it over the black, and then I sprayed it with water again and let it kind of bleed out some more. So that's why it has a little more of that kind of feathering effect to it. But I think it's really pretty. And then I did try it with this. Didn't work very well. Yeah, and I did too many other things to that for that to even be a fair sample, I think. But it was the sunflower background. Now this is the Big Bumble by Whimsy, and I think this one worked pretty good. It's a little bit different. I used, let me see, this yellow is called Mango Madness, And then of course I used the Jumbo Java again, and I think it turned out pretty cool. And then I went back in with the black. I actually had to stamp over it a couple times to get a good image. It's different. I think it's kind of cool. It gives me some of that detail that I've been missing in the past when I've used it, but I really like it. And then I pulled out this one. It's called Pretty Peonies by Simon. It's a couple years old, but I really, really like this stamp. So at this point, I had pulled out my Arteza paper. And you can see that I didn't get any of the feathering. It's stamped, I used green and brown, and I didn't get any of the feathering at all. Now this is again just a bunch of stamp off. And I sprayed it with water. Actually, I sprayed it heavily with water. It did not move at all. And then I stamped it in black. And so I still get a little bit more of that detail, but it's not what I had hoped for. So I thought, well, maybe it's not the paper. Let me try again. So this one I stamped in just the green, and then I decided I would go ahead and stamp it again and heat emboss. No, I didn't stamp it in the green. I'm sorry. I stamped it in just the brown. And you can see the brown in there behind the gold. So really, when I sprayed it with water, all it did is kind of bleed out the color, but it didn't bleed the color. It faded the color. Let me make sure I'm using the right words, because bleeding meant it would have spread, right? It would have feathered, but it did not do that. Then I went back to my Fabriano, and of course it worked perfectly. So I actually probably feathered it out too much. Like right in here is probably exactly what I'm looking for. In these places I used a little bit too much water. So it's definitely something that you want to practice with. But I think it's really cool because it does look like the faux wood burning, and then the black gives you the detail. Now this one I went ahead and I knew that I had used way too much water on that one. That's the Fabriano. This is the Fabriano as well. This I actually just was picking up pigment because my stamp was too wet, but I thought I'd go back and try to do the heat embossing on both of these. My ink wasn't wet enough. It didn't have enough open time for the, what is this called? Embossing powder. The ink that I used didn't have enough open time to hold on to the powder. So, but those are what I have. But I thought that I would play with it one more time while I have you guys here with me. And I have a couple different stamps that I thought about trying. Sorry, I turned my back to the desk. So let me move these things. While I get set up, let me tell you about Saturday Morning Makes. We've kind of gone through a few changes, and you still want to use this hashtag, Satmorn Makes, but you can also go to a Facebook group. I'll have to link it downstairs because I don't remember the name of it just yet. I have joined the group, but it's where we can all go and we can share, and it doesn't have to be on Saturday, but that's still kind of the idea. Yeah, I think for this, I'm going to use this stamp. I think this has too much black space, as does that. So I think this one will work. So yeah, so Saturday Morning Makes, again, was the brainchild of the beautiful Jillian Norwood. And I encourage you to join us. Hop around. Your project does not have to be a paper craft. It can be any kind of craft that you want. Most of us are paper crafters, but that's not neither here nor there. You can share whatever it is you'd like to share. So Fabriano, I'm laying it down. I typically line it up between 1 and 8 because this apparently is a lefty and I'm a righty, but this is the way I use it. So anyway, I am going to line this up at the very bottom and put it in the center. And I'm just going to use the brown again. Now remember, if you're using a red rubber stamp, you want to pull your foam pad out of your MISTI. Now, do you have to have a MISTI or some kind of a stamping platform to do this technique? I would say you don't have to, but it will definitely help because you want to be able to line things back up perfectly. As you can see on this green one, I did not. You know, that was eyeballing it because I didn't have it in the MISTI, and it's way off. It's way off. And I don't even know what I might use that one for. That one's going to sit in my stash for a long time before it gets used. So, because if you don't know me, I don't throw much away. So I probably won't throw it away, but it'll be in my stash for a long time before I come up with a use for it. So you can use whatever ink you have. You just want to make sure that it is water soluble, because that's the idea with this first layer, right? We want it to have that loosey-goosey watercolor look. So I just do a little mist over my paper and then a little mist over my stamp. And then when you stamp it down, you want to let it just sit on the paper for a minute, because you want to allow that wet ink to absorb into that wet paper. And as it does, it's going to feather out or bleed out. Let me get a drink. Oh, water is the best, right? Ice water, so yummy. So just pushing it down, making sure that I get even pressure, and just giving it time to transfer and for that ink to take hold. And then I lift it up, and it already has some of that movement going on. This is really good right here. If I feel like there's not quite enough, I just give it another little spritz. And then you can see it start to bleed out, start to feather that. I'm gonna do some more on the little sticks. I want it to move a little bit more. And then I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna restrain myself. Now, every time I've seen this done, they always say to dry it. I don't always dry it. My paper, I mean. I do want to clean off my stamp. But I just want to allow this time to do what it's going to do. I think I want a little bit more movement in those two florals. Not a lot. Now let me bring it up close. Can you see? Can you see how that ink is feathering out? But it's not so blurred out that you can no longer tell what the image is, right? And so this is where you can dry it. Again, I don't necessarily. I did it once without drying it just because I was being hasty, and it didn't seem to malfunction in any way. So I kept doing it. So here we go. Now I have my VersaFine Claire Nocturne, and then same thing. Just close the door, press it down. You want to make sure that you get it all over. Nice even pressure. Give it time to absorb into your paper, take hold, and create all those details that we just kind of obliterated with the water. See what we get. Now I need to stamp it again, but it is working. It's creating those details. Now, would I have a different look if I had taken the time to dry it? Probably, to be honest, I probably would. Does it matter at this point? I don't know. I'm not gonna lie, but I'm also not gonna stress about it. This is just me wondering what if, and then acting on it. That's how we learn. That's how we grow. I think that looks really cool. I still want to get a little bit more detail in a couple places, so I'm going to do it again. Just going to focus my stamping and my inking on those areas. So like I want some more right here and here, and maybe in the center of that flower. Maybe a little bit more in the center of that one too, if I can close my misty door. All right, so we want this flower and that bud and that little leafy area there. So still not getting it right here, right? So I don't know if that's me not inking properly, if I've missed it. I'm not sure. There we go. That's really cool. All right, so we're gonna call this one done. Look how cool that is. And now what I want to do is also stamp it out just by itself so we can see what it would look like in black and then again in brown, and just kind of compare, right? See if I've got enough ink on there to matter. No, I don't have it lined up in the same spot, but it's okay. Now, keeping in mind that this is watercolor card, so it's very textured, so that's why it's, at least partly why it's taken so long and so much effort to get a good solid impression. This has quite the texture to it. Now, had I flipped it over, the other side is not quite as textured. It's a beautiful stamp. This is from Technique Junkies. Let me see if I can find the name of it. Spring Flowers. It's very pretty. And of course, again, when you stamp on watercolor card, you lose a lot of that detail because of the texture. So I'm just trying to bend it a little bit. Okay, I think that's as good as it's going to get. At least that's as good as I have the stamina to put the effort into. So, all right, now let's clean off that pigment ink. I just use hand sanitizer. It's good enough for Tim Holtz. It's good enough for me. And this I have had since the start of the pandemic. So in the beginning I felt guilty using hand sanitizer in my craft room because it was at such a premium. But obviously I didn't take anything away from anybody because I've been using it for 2 years. Okay, now this is Arteza. I don't have any more Fabriano cut. Alright, and this time I'm just going to do it in the brown. If I can find my brown. So I'm going to do it in the brown, and then I'm going to spray it out again so we can see what that watercolory, loosey-goosey feathered image looked like compared to what we have, right? Again, you want to just let it sit there for a minute to absorb into your paper. Now I have to decide what I'm going to do with all these backgrounds. Now see, it's nice and feathery there, and here not so much. So again, I'm going to come in with just little mists. And this is the Arteza, so this is not a fair. See how it doesn't spread? It is here, but it's more pooling than it is feathering. Yeah, so that was not a fair. See, that just doesn't work. The Arteza just doesn't work. So that wasn't a fair comparison. And I don't know that this image was the best sample, but I do love this feathering right here. Just feel like this is probably too detailed. This part is great, so I could always just use that part. That's likely what I'll do there. So this one, I don't throw much away. This one is going in the trash. Trash. Y'all witnessed it here. It's in my trash can. All right. So anyway, guys, that is what I have been playing with today on this Saturday, July 1st. Nothing groundbreaking, nothing patriotic, nothing, just playing with an idea, expanding my understanding of concepts and techniques. I think this one might be my favorite. Those not so much, that not so much, not so much. That one's not bad. Those are usable. This one's really good. That one's good. Thought I had more that I liked. I do. They're just stacked underneath here. And then these two are fun as well. And I love a green and brown color palette. Let me put that up there again. So they're usable. Those two I think are really fun. I love that. I love that stamp from Tailored Expression. Again, that one is called Just Vine. It's really pretty, really delicate. And then this one again is from Pink Fresh Studio, Winterberry. This is Big Bumble, and this is the Peony, Pretty Peony. So let me know if you have a favorite of those. Let me know your thoughts on what I should do with these, because these will become something, and maybe they'll all just be cards. You know, maybe a thank you, maybe a missing you, maybe a thinking of you, get well. I don't know, it could be just generic cards. They don't need much more to become something. But let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you think of this technique, if you've done it before. If I'm doing something wrong, clue me in. There's always room for growth. I'd love to understand, and I'd love to hear your feedback and what your experience has been. So guys, thanks. This is Nancy, the Handy Scandy for Saturday Morning Makes. I appreciate you spending some time with me as always. And until next time, mwah, I'm out. All right, and here are some close-ups of my favorites. Again, let me know what you think I ought to make out of them. I've kind of started making a card or two. Let me know what else you think you might like to see. And in the meantime, if you like this video, I appreciate a thumbs up. And if you are not already a member of my crafty tribe, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and ring that bell so you're alerted every time that I post something new. And if you are already a member of my crafty tribe, thank you yet again for your support, for your love, for your kindness. You guys are all the best. I thank you for providing me this platform and this arena to just share my creativity with you and just absorb all of the love and support from you guys. Until next time, y'all. Mwah. This is Nancy, the Handy Scandy, and I'm out.